Hey y'all, what's going on? This is J Marie Booklist, and today I'm making a video about when hospitals go paperless, what happens after that. So when I first became a secretary long time ago, early 2000s, the hospitals were not paperless. They barely, there was no such thing as Wi-Fi. I had a cell phone. It was one of them. It wasn't a flip phone, but it was like it was one of those, and it did not work in the hospital. And so this was a long time ago. Okay, the world has totally changed in like 20 years. But you know, when I first started, we had paper charts. We had that's what you did. Like the consults, everything was done on paper. You will write it on a piece of paper. You know, you call in the consult who you spoke to, and write all that and put in the patient's chart. And you know, that's how you document it. Everything was paper. We did use the system. I really don't know what we used the system for, to tell you the truth. I think the system might have been just for, I don't know. Now that I think about it, I don't remember what we used. I guess I don't know what we used system for, because we always used paper. We had the paper charts. The doctors write the orders on the charts. We used to have to go and get the MAR, the MAR, and write. So if the doctor wrote updated medication, we would have to go to the cow, the computer on wheels, the cow for that patient. So the nurse would have her MARs. We would have to go to that cow and then get the patient's MAR and then handwrite it. So we would scratch out the old whatever and put in a new one if it was like an update. So let's say they changed the dosage or the time, or you know, just how much they take. You know, we will have to scratch that out and write the new one. So that was a long time ago. Now a lot of stuff is done on the computer, and hospitals are going paperless, which is not, it's not paperless. Is, if anything, it's more paper. But you know, it's a lot of things are being done away with, but it's not paperless. Okay, so now we don't put the orders in the computer unless something happens, or like let's say they come up from the ER and that doctor might have wrote some quick orders, then that's different. Or we might have orders if it's a direct admit. You know, a patient comes from the doctor's office and the doctor, you know, dictated all these orders once the patient got to the floor. Things like that. So you will still see that, but for the most part, there are no physical orders. And even when you have situations like that, you will fax the order. Like if it had medication, you will fax it, scan it, send it down to the pharmacy, because we don't put those in. So we will put in the other orders, but we don't put in medication orders. And so, but for the most part, there are no written orders. Like I said, unless they come from ER or something happens, you know, the computers go down, or a direct admit, something like that. And the chart is still there. I mean, most places still have charts. The charts don't have as much, but a lot of stuff we do on the computer. We document in the computer for consults, and we put in a lot of stuff in the computer if it's not already there, if someone else hasn't already done it. So that's what happens when they go paperless. So I'm gonna tell you, when I first started, we had the charts, we had to go to the cows and all that stuff. But then when I went back to working as secretary, they were going paperless. So that's when they were starting the CPOE, which is what is it? Computerized physician order entry, something like that, CPOE. But the ER was the last to do it. So, and for some reason, the ER used to print out, we used to get their orders, some kind of way they printed out their orders. Like they would put the orders in the computer, but then they would print out what they had put in and send it up with the patient. But then eventually they phased out. ER was when I say ER, it was the last to stop. It was good 2 years. They were before they actually stopped. It had to be at least 2 years. So even though on the floors we weren't putting in orders as much, we will still get a lot of orders from ER. because they were the last holdout. I don't know why it took them 2 years. It took them good 2-3 years before they stopped. And then when they stopped, they stopped. Like, when the patient would come up, you would literally have a paper clip in a label. I'm like, y'all could have kept all that. Okay, like, you send the patient up with a paper clip and some labels. Like, what do you need a paper clip for? Just like, what? We can put on labels. Like, when I say they stopped, when they went paperless, they for real went paperless. Like, for real. But they were going that way. So, because like back in the day, we had to try to figure out who these doctors were writing these orders. The handwriting was just I mean, I could read the orders, I just couldn't read who wrote it. And then but as it progressed, the doctors put their orders in. So the question is, what happened? Well, like I said, the ER was still using, they were the last holdout, and that's probably how it's going to be. The ER is always the last holdout when they go. So then another question was, well, how did the job evolve? So once we went paperless, how did we evolve? It was easier. So I'm talking about when I came back and they were going CPOE. It was easier because it was charts all over the place. Like, the doctors would write orders and they would put it in like a little, I don't know what you call it, like a little slot for the charts, and the secretary would stay rolling. That's why they always had 2 secretaries. Because even a long time ago, when I worked at the other hospital, they had 2 secretaries. And then here, they were starting to go paperless, but they still had 2 secretaries. To this day, they still got 2 secretaries because that's a busy floor. So it freed up the secretary from putting in all those orders, but it just wasn't chaotic. I guess to me, it didn't seem like it was a big deal. I mean, I noticed a little bit difference, because I just work. So, I handle mine. So when we had all those charts and doctors and everybody at the nurse station, I handled it. So when they stopped, I mean, I noticed a difference, but it wasn't like nothing. Oh, I'm bored. I just that's when I really stepped up and handled my business. I straightened up the unit because the unit was disorganized. And so it didn't really, I mean, I noticed a difference, but it wasn't a big difference where I'm about to fall asleep at work. Because that floor always needed 2 secretaries. A floor that always needs 2 secretaries, I don't know how you bored. How you just sitting there. But see, I'm not that type of person to just sit somewhere. I go clean. I go find me something to do. I straighten up. That's why I said, when I transferred from the main floor, that was the main floor I was on, and I went to the ICU, I left my print because I didn't just sit there waiting on something to happen. I made stuff happen. So it just, to me, it was a change, but not that much because I was always a hard worker, go-getter. I didn't wait for the work to come to me. I went look for some work. So that was just me. Now, the floors did try to make secretaries do more. So, like when I went over to the ICU, they tried it with the main floor. So they wanted 1 secretary, depending on what the census was. So the census, if they were full on our sister floor, that's why I always talk about our sister floor. I got a lot of stories because they tried to have 1 secretary do both floors. They tried it. So the ICU is, it's only 8 patients. The nurses, because in the ICU was the nurse and the secretary, and the nurses worked very well together. So it was very cohesive. Like, it was no issue. They talked about each other all the time, but as far as stress, nobody was stressed behind, I need help and nobody's here to help me, or like if one nurse was overwhelmed, everybody overwhelmed because something has gone on in this unit. Because for the most part, everybody was chilling. Okay, we was cool because everybody worked together, so nobody got overwhelmed. So if one was overwhelmed, everybody was overwhelmed. It's like shit is hitting the fan in the ICU. And so, but for the most part, we was cool. Everything was cool. And so they would see that, and they would see the nurses cool, patients cool, Jackie cool. And so we're going to try to work Jackie. And so they would have me, depending on what the census was, and if they didn't have a secretary on the sister floor, which for the most part, they usually did have a secretary. But they would try it and back down a secretary, and they would always back down them. I used to have to beg to get canceled because I was so good. They would rather have me work and do both floors because they know I can handle it, than to have me on my floor and then, you know, their secretary on their floor, because they needed a secretary. But I was so good, they would back that secretary down, like, if they could. That's why I say they tried it. But see, I was just, you know, the best. So they tried to get one to do more. Same thing on our sister floor. I mean, not our sister floor, the other floor that always had the nurses crying. They tried it over there. So that unit required 2 secretaries, and then they had a sister floor, and that sister floor needed a secretary. So during day shift, they would need 3 secretaries, but they would try it with the 1 secretary downstairs on the sister floor, and then the 1 secretary on the main floor. And then sometimes they tried it and had the 1 secretary doing all the floors. Like, they tried it, because I don't think they tried it with me. I know they did it before. And then one time they had the sister floor. So you had the 1 floor that had 2 secretaries, and then the sister floor that had 1. And then they had that secretary that was on the 1 working there and in the ICU. And so it was like, you trying to get one to in the ICU, and their ICU was a totally, because I worked in one ICU, it was 2 ICUs. So they were trying to get that one. I know they did, because they asked me to go relieve her while she went to lunch. And I came down to relieve her. I'm like, I'm relieving her? Yeah, go relieve her in the ICU so she can go lunch. And then I go down there, and she at the other. I'm like, well, why you here? And she like, she doing both. Oh, okay, they trying it. Oh, okay, I see what they doing around here. So I relieved her in ICU. I did not sit at. I don't even think I went out there. I'm like, yeah, no, not today. Because then they had tried to get me to, because our floor, we were kind of slow. And soon as she came back, I was out of there. Because I'm like, they're going to try to get me to stay in the ICU and have her work. No. Because y'all knew this foolishness, you know. But she was running out. Because they were all under the same management. Let's put it like that. And, you know. Okay. Soon as I saw her, I ran right on back to my unit. Because I'm like, they're going to try to get me to stay over here and have her out there and think they slick. Because I'm like, oh, that's weird for me to go relieve somebody on another floor to go to lunch. What's that about? And then I saw that, oh, when I say I ran back to my unit, okay? They couldn't find me. You ever seen somebody it was just blur. That's all you saw. I was gone. Okay, I was like, oh, I see what they gonna try. Because I was like, I ain't never went and relieved somebody. And I know our management tried that one time, but I don't think it was with me. It might have been somebody else, or maybe it might have been night shift. I think it was me. She cause she came from another floor. She was like the manager on another floor, and she became our manager, and she wanted me to go over there and help them. And the nurses was like, Jackie ain't going nowhere. Jackie ain't going nowhere. Okay, like, what? Why am I gonna go? It's like 4 o'clock. You know, it's 4 o'clock. They gonna start changing shift at 5. Well, she need help over there. They were like, Jackie ain't going nowhere. Like, nurses were like, Jackie ain't going nowhere. We need her here. I'm like, why? But she tried it. But that's when she first came over there. Don't be worrying about them over there. That's not your department no more. You over us. You over us. Don't be trying to send us over there to help them out. You know, the nurses did not have that. Okay, they did. Why they need help? Well, y'all know they need help over there, because that floor, I want to say they used to have 2 secretaries. I might have seen it a few times, but they got away with that, and they just had 1, and that was like a surgical unit, which my mom said, isn't that the floor that always smelled like pee? I was like, my mom was like, that's the urology floor, because my mom was a nurse, and she worked there for a minute. She was a travel nurse, and she was like, that's the floor that always smelled like pee. She was like, that's the urology floor. I said, Mama, that was not the urology floor. Yes, it was, because it always smelled like pee. I was like, you thinking about the wrong hospital, because she was a travel nurse. But they used to have 2, and then they went to 1, and they kept it at 1 for a long time. So for them, all of a sudden, when she came over and became our management, for me to go over there help them, she been doing whoever over there been doing it all day by themselves. They do it every day by themselves. Why? The nurses were like, no. I'm like, go where? I ain't going nowhere. They were like, she ain't going nowhere. Okay. They go over there and help them. You over us now. Okay. Don't be worrying about what they got and staff they ain't got. Cause she always, cause I heard her. She was always trying to get us to go over there. Like she was still over them and was trying to, no, you don't worry about them. So they tried it. They would try it. No, you need to hire somebody, or you need to have 2 secretaries, or they need to do how we used to do on the main floor. On the main floor, it used to be with the 2 secretaries. It used to be 1 12-hour on one side, and on the other side was 8 hours. So so I was 12, so I would come 7 to 7, and then night shift would come in 7 to 7. And then on the other side, it was 7 to 3, and then 3 to 11, and then 11 to 7. So that's how they had it. So when the girl that did 11 to 7 left, they never filled it. So the girl who came in at 7 to 7, so when I got off, who did 7P to 7A, she would be there. But then she had the girl that did 3 to 11 on the other side. So then when the girl who did 3 to 11, when she left at 11, then the one who did 7P to 7A would be the only one there. But that was just, 8 hours? And then, then we would come back in. But then eventually they changed it to everybody's 12 hours. And then that's when they needed more. I was already gone by then. But that's when they needed more per diem, because they had a grip of per diems, and the secretaries always worked over there. Like it was never one of us by ourselves all the time. Like they worked. It was never we never floated. Very seldom did we float, because our floor needed our secretaries. We were busy. Even though we were paperless, we had gone paperless, our floor needed our secretary. So we floated every now and then. But usually if I work extra, I will work on my day off. So I did 3 days. So I would, I had 4 days off. So I would call and say, hey, if you need a secretary anywhere in the hospital, I'll work. And then, so that's how I did my overtime. But they very seldom floated us, because we need our staff. The other floors need to get their own staff. Okay. We were good secretaries on our floor. We worked together. It was none of that calling off and all this. It was none of that. We stayed busy, and the other floors are busy too. It's not like it wasn't no work because we ain't had no paper. Because it went paperless. They just didn't want to. They didn't want to. But anyway, let me hush. So the other floor, the floor that always had the nurses crying, they tried it. They tried, and then they even tried with their secretary. So 7, they all did 12-hour shifts, which they probably should have did some, I don't know, but anyway. And they had a lot of staff too, but a lot of their secretaries were per diem, which I didn't understand. But that's why they always needed secretaries to float, because they staff was per diem, which is like, why don't you just hire them full time? But I don't know why they had so many per diem staff, and then the per diem didn't want to work. But that's why I was always pulled over there. But they tried it too with the 12-hour shift. So the 2 secretaries, because I told you the one part needed 2, and then the one below needed 1. Well, the one that needed 2 on night shift, they would both come in at 7, and then they try to send one home at 3. So I don't know. That's what they do. So, you know, they try it. So it's not that, you know, because we're paperless, you don't need the secretaries because ain't no work. It's work, but they just don't know how to. They felt that they were saving money by, you know, I guess saving the hospital budget by not having so many secretaries when you need the secretaries. Like that. I mean, did it get slow? Yeah, it got slow. Shit, we probably slower in the ICU because season, and then we only had a certain number of beds, and then, you know, like, so when they would have me do our floor and the sister floor, I would do it on the weekends. That was fine. You know, I told them I never had a problem doing it on the weekends because the weekends we didn't have the procedures going on, like surgeries, and then, you know, if you need to have like a stent put in or whatever, none of that was open unless it was emergency. So it's much easier for me because we're not getting all those admissions, transfers, patients coming back to their rooms, none of that. You would just get admissions from the ER, or you get transfers, you know, but it wasn't like, you know, 5 people need to go have stents today, and we're going to send them down and got to do it and then send them back up, and people come from outside to have, you know, and they might go home. Oh, no, now they're going to stay. We need a bed. You know, it's none of that. It was none of that. I never had a problem with the weekend. It was during the weekday. They tried it, and I get all kind of attitude, okay? Like, them Fridays, anybody got time playing with y'all on Fridays with all this mess and only one secretary? But now, if it was slow, if it was seasoned and it was nice and slow, then yeah, that was fine. You know, I can handle it. But anybody got time being? But they, you know, they tried it. So then the third question was, well, what are the responsibilities now that we're paperless? Trying to get you to do more for less, like trying to get one person to do the job, or 2 people, sometimes 3, because I remember on the other floor when they had the 2, and then the one they only had one day, they only had 1. I was like, ooh. Feel sorry for you. You better work it out, because I ain't coming over there. Don't even look over here. Look, I will run back to my unit real fast. And because they, you know, they had like they knew they be acting. But so you got one person doing the job or more. Then of course, you know, you might have like they want, depending on the unit, they might want a CNA/HUC. So like a CNA/HUC will work good, would have worked perfect in ICU. I know in the other ICU, they had 3 units. It was like 3 sides to the ICU. The one side was always cut off. That was like the overflow. But they had the main, and then they had the other side, and the other side was closed off unless it was busy. And then they would open that side up. But for the most part, they always had 1 secretary. I ain't never saw them with 2 secretaries. Even though, because whenever I would float over there to that ICU, I would be the only secretary. So I'm like, how some days you got 2? And then, because I would see it on the, because I would call down there, and I'm like, and then some days they had 1, because sometimes I would call because we needed the schedule for the intensivist, like who's going to be the intensivist for the month. I don't know why we never got, I don't know where the schedule was, but I always had to call over there and get it from them. But, and then they would fax it over. But some of them secretaries, I never knew who they were. Like, I never knew. I knew the name, but I couldn't put the name with the face. So, and then some I could. And that was the ones who always worked. But the other ones, I'm like, y'all got all these secretaries who went. But they only had 1 secretary. They had got so used to only having 1 secretary, and the one was always going to go smoke. But when I float over there, I would be like, well, do you want me to forward the calls? Because you had the 2 sides. Just forward all the calls to where I'm sitting at. And they were like, no. The nurse was like, no. Just let it ring back here. So the phone's ringing back there. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, that's just like, ugh, how you function? How y'all function? But they just so used to not having a secretary, only having 1 secretary, because the secretary sat on the one side and not in the back. So, I'm like, y'all need to get this shit together. But, you know, the other floor was kind of like the floor that had 2, because they were all together. They just didn't work. They just did not work as a unit with the secretaries. It was weird. I guess that's why I just didn't I don't know, but they were all in the same management. So, but they try to get you to do more. So that's why you have some want secretaries. Y'all forgive me if I'm sweating, okay? But some want secretaries to do more. Some want PCA, CNAs who become HUC, who get cross-trained, who can do more. You might have more interaction with the patients. So I know they had started a program when I was still on the main floor about not walking past the green light. So when a patient would call, if you're walking down the hallway, you can see, you know, you can pop your head in and see what they need so they can get, because, you know, the person that they need might be in the room, but at least let them know that you acknowledge them. Well, the secretary already acknowledged them because they answered the call light. But, you know, maybe you can help, you know, so they had a thing where you couldn't. So that's why I always talk about how I go in the room and help with the patients and stuff, because it was like, if I can do it, I'll do it, you know. Now, if I can't do it, I ain't doing it. Because they had, you know, what the secretaries, what we could not do, because they made a CBL about that, about what we could and couldn't do. We can go in the rooms, but, you know, give blankets and stuff. So I was used to doing that anyway. So by the time I went to the ICU, that's what they wanted. They wanted someone to help. But I was already used to doing it. So that's why they're like, oh my God, you're the best. Because like when other secretaries would float over there, they wouldn't do that, because they did not do that. But I was just used to it. So because we were the pilot floor, because our manager at the time, she liked to pilot everything on our floor. I think they still do. They pilot on the main floor. So you get more responsibility. You get more interaction with the patient. That's how the job evolves. You get more interaction with the patient. You may be required in the future, depending on what unit, to get trained as CNA. So if you are like me, secretary, you may be required in the future to be trained as a CNA. You also may be required to learn how to read an EKG. I know some ERs, they want a secretary who is, you know, secretary who can read EKGs. And because they in the ICU, they tried to get me to learn that. They were encouraging me to learn it, but I was like, because I was like, the only way I would do it is if I you know, worked on the unit as a secretary, because one of the secretaries did do that. She knew how to read EKGs. That's why she got paid more. So she worked night shift, so she got that differential, and then she knew how to read EKGs. But I was like, I would not want to be a monitor tech, because our monitor techs were annoying, like super annoying. And they were on that floor with, they had all the nurses crying, so you know they ain't that. So, but you know, then you might be required to learn how to read EKG, read a monitor, the heart monitor. You learn how to read that. Some jobs do require that. I know some ERs require it. I know some hospitals require it. And then some, you know, being cross-trained as a CNA. So that could be how the job evolves. You do more than just answer the phone, because, you know, that's all they think we do now is just answer the phone and be cute. But we do a lot anyway. But that could be one of the ways that that the job evolves. So I just want you to keep that in the back of your head. And if push came to shove, I would learn how to read an EKG probably before I go become a CNA, because I don't think I can do being a CNA. I don't think I can do it. But if it was a requirement to be a CNA/HUC or read an EKG/HUC, I would learn how to read the monitor, the heart monitor. I will learn how to do that. So that's all I got for you. Like I said, this was a requested video from a viewer. I hope I answered your questions. If I didn't, just put in the comments what else you need to know. If you want me to clarify something else, I can make a video. I can respond to you. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.